believes the recommendations aren't direct enough.
So I find myself reading the report and not actually being sure which is the right approach. I mean, I think the biggest thing for me that's missing in the report is why they haven't considered some of the other options. We need a really good Model 4 hospital in Limerick, so why not just have a new Model 4 hospital and let UHL become a Model 3?
All eyes are on Hamas as it considers Donald Trump's plan for peace in Gaza. The US president is warning the militant group it only has 3 or 4 days to respond. Speaking as he was preparing to board Air Force One, Mr. Trump says if Hamas doesn't agree to the deal, he'll give his backing to Israel to do what it needs to do.
So they paid a big price. We hope that they're going to have a nice, calm life. Maybe it won't happen, but if it does, it'll be one of the greatest things ever to happen. We'll have actual peace in the Middle East.
The Dublin Airport passenger cap could be lifted by this time next year. Transport Minister Darragh O'Brien has secured a cabinet approval to address the limits. Dublin Airport has welcomed the move and expressed its wish the legislation can be progressed swiftly. It, along with airlines, notably Ryanair, have been critical of the cap for some time. And The Cure has announced a gig for Dublin next summer. MCD Productions say the band will play Marley Park on Friday, June 26, 2026. They'll be joined by special guests The Twilight Sad, along with Irish bands Just Mustard and Stella and the Dreaming. Tickets go on sale on Friday at 12 o'clock. And that's your news for now.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Less Howie, more ciao bella. With Ryanair's low-fare flights to Rome, Milan or Pisa.
Widespread rain, which will become lighter and patchier by morning. Moderate to fresh southerly breezes. Mild and humid tonight with lowest temperatures of 13 to 15 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With UPMC Orthopaedic Care. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
This is News Talk.
Very good evening here. Welcome along to Tuesday night's Off the Ball. We're with you till 10 o'clock this evening, and we will, of course, be keeping you up to speed on everything that happens in the Champions League, all the goals as they happen, in the company of Eoin Doyle. He'll be in studio from 8 o'clock, and the football show coming your way between 9 and 10. Tommy Rooney and Cara O'Kane are going to get us up and running from 7:30 to talk about Special Congress this weekend and some of the long-term signposts that we're getting from the FRC as they basically wash their hands on what's been a pretty successful period for the game. And then from 8 o'clock, we're going to be speaking to Muhammad Ali's official biographer, Thomas Hauser. Our number is 0879 180 180 if you want to drop us a WhatsApp. Cameron Hill is in studio. Hello, Cameron.
Hello, Owen.
And Michael McCarthy is in studio as well.
Hello, Owen. How are you?
Evening, Mick. So, the reason we have Thomas Hauser joining us on the show tonight is that tomorrow marks the 50th anniversary of the Thrilla in Manila. This was, of course, the third of the Ali Fraser fights. One win apiece in their rivalry going into this in the Philippines. And they basically produce one of the most brutal mornings, as it was in that case, of all time in a professional sports context. So let's pick it up from the bell at the end of the 14th round here.
That was the biggest round of the fight for anybody. Fraser was within a punch or two of going down. The doctor comes up and looks at Fraser. I think it's going to be over. It's all over. I'm up in the ring here, and Muhammad Ali is pretty well spent, and I'm going to try to get over at him to talk to Ali, who has retained his title, and I think he needs a little air, because this has to have been one of the most bruising heavyweight championships of all time. Just a question. Did you have any doubt about winning at any time?
Well, round 10, I was surprised Joe had so much stamina, as surprised as Nasubi was. And if I didn't have the condition, I know I would have lost. There was too much pressure.
I think he deserved a lot of...
He is the greatest fighter of all times next to me.
Except for you.
Except for me.
The visuals accompanying this are astonishing, really. The moment where he goes to interview him and you can hear even just from the audio alone that he has failed in his attempts to interview him because something has happened. It's because Ali has missed the stool at the end, or he's fallen completely off the stool as they try to get him into the centre of the ring. The best way I can describe the visuals of this after the bell goes is that nobody's having a good time. Everybody is hating their lives at this moment. Even the entourage and the hangers-on are all fairly ashen-faced with what they've seen. That they're telling the reporter, I am very, very happy for our fighter. This is very, very good, but nobody looks like they're having a good time. It looks absolutely torturous.
Yeah, it's the greatest illustration I would say you'll ever see as to why fights now have a 12-round limit rather than a 15-round limit, because these two men, you watch the end of that 14th round just before that audio kicks in, and like both men have nothing left, and Ali is on top and he's throwing sluggers, but it's like he's only able to do one every 5 or 10 seconds. It's just nothing left, and Joe Frazier is just completely wasted. But as you say, that interview with Ali takes place on a stool in the middle of the ring because he lost his footing, and they rushed the stool out and gathered a circle around him, and the interviewer, who was the commentator for the fight, couldn't get into him for a number of seconds. It's cut out of that audio of him just trying to say, can I just have a word? Can I just have one word? And it's like, completely ruthless, of course. And Ali all the facade is gone from Ali's face in that time. By the time he talks, it's back enough for him to just say, to give Joe Frazier the credit, but still say, I'm the greatest of all time. It's back to a certain extent, but he is just, it's funny, the original shot when the bell goes at the 14th round, the original shot of the corner is on Ali rather than Frazier, and he is so slumped, you kind of think, if you didn't know the history of this fight, but you knew one of them didn't come back out after 14, you'd say that man's not standing back up, and it's so funny. He got on top, he nearly knocked him out, and he got to the corner. I don't know if he would have been able to go another 3 minutes. It's remarkable. The
image from this fight that always maintains is in the 13th, when Ali punches out Frazier's gum shields and it just goes flying across the ring, and everybody in this packed arena can see it happening. It's fantastic. But the 14th is certainly something that I just had no great appreciation of until watching it back earlier on. And as I say, we'll be speaking to Thomas Hauser about it later on, but Richard Hoffer, I believe, was a Sports Illustrated writer, wrote this. The 14th round, the final 3 minutes of their shared agony, was a kind of scientific experiment, an investigation into the extremes of human behaviour. Just exactly what it was a person capable of. How far could he go? How deep could he reach? Nobody had ever seen it conducted at this level. Nobody really knew what desire and pride could accomplish or destroy. Now they did. And even when you listen to a bit of Ali there, how magnanimous he is immediately afterwards is maybe a little bit of a sign of how out of it he is mentally at that point. He says later in that interview that we heard from there that he plans to fight once more, maybe against a foreman again, and then that's it. My body can't keep doing this. But you can count up another. So that was 7, the 8, end. 9.
That was the end of 1975, and in 1976 he fights 4 times. And it ends with, and in no time, like he's fighting every 2-3 months. He takes a break after the 4th fight, which is less than a year after this. He fights Ken Norton. There's an argument this is Ali's last great fight, is probably his last great defences a year later against Norton, and then it kind of goes downhill from there. But how he kept doing it to himself at this age, he's in his mid-30s at this stage as well. Like, don't forget he was 32 for 33 at this stage, I'd imagine. So, and that was back when 33 was an old man, not quite what it is now, and in sports terms, obviously. So he just kept going and going, and you see what a fight like that took out of him. It's a sort of a sad story, and Joe Frazier, obviously, on the other side of it, there's a legacy to Joe Frazier of, like, he lost the greatest trilogy of all time in a fight that could have went either way on the 14th, and because he wasn't knocked out or because the referee didn't stop the fight, it's almost affected his legacy in a way that he didn't answer the bell for the 15th round. He retired on a stool, is sort of in some ways. Now, I do think most people fight back against that idea of Frazier, but at the same time, it is there as part of the discussion around it.
Well, he's a huge character in the story of Ali. Like, one of my favourite, I didn't admittedly know a whole pile about the Thriller in Manila until today, but one of my favourite, I think actually my favourite sports book of all time is The Fight by Norman Mailer, which covers the Rumble in the Jungle, of which the 50th anniversary was last year. And even in that, like, Fraser is doing the commentary in Zaire of that fight. He's still a figure on the shadows of Ali. It's clear that he wishes he was in the ring, because for all of George Foreman's sort of presence within the ring and how he's described by Mailer in, albeit slightly racist, questionable terms, he doesn't quite engage with the classic sort of baiting that Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is described as a matador in that, because George Foreman's bull just refuses to engage in the verbals. It's going to be a total physical context. Whereas you can see, and the way that Mailer describes Fraser watching on, sort of basically like goading and dismissing Ali and saying he's not quite at it when he starts going on the ropes and absorbing the punches. That rivalry burns even in a fight where Fraser isn't even involved. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah, and he never got over it.
No,
you know.
He said I'm going to dance on his grave. That seemed to be one of the consolations from losing 2-1 versus Ali, was that there was evidently more damage done to Ali than there was Joe Frazier after their career. So he's like, I'm going to outlive the guy. I'm going to dance on his grave. He dies in 2011. Ali dies in 2015. So even that little battle in his own head, he ended up losing that, which is kind of a cruel illustration that Ali always had one over him. And even, as we'll hear after 8 o'clock, that game of chicken at the end. Like,
yeah.
Ali was so close to losing that. So we'll never know for sure, but there's a lot of evidence in terms of other people who were in that ring that suggests that if Frazier had come back out for the 15th, we wouldn't have seen Ali.
Yeah, unbelievable idea. Like the thought of the moment in time, like, you know, and how that would affect the legacies of both men for the rest of the time. And as well, I think we should put into context as well, it's like the year before in Zaire is Ali's greatest ever win, right? And it's his greatest moment. That's the absolute pinnacle of his legacy and so on. This might be his greatest ever performance, given that he's a year older and how much he had to go to the well. It's another one of those fights that's given a mad name and in a completely random part of the world.
Yeah,
and you have to remember that as well. Like, this is like, this isn't like fighting in Saudi Arabia in 2025 in an air-conditioned ring or anything like that. This is in Manila in 1975 in the middle of the day. That's like
10 a.m.
and you're fighting for 15 rounds or 14 as the two men did. It's like, how did they do it? Like, they weren't, you know, get them some air. You heard the commentator say there.
Well, they did it it was an uninspiring job of sports washing at the time, because they were looking at Zaire the previous year and they were like, oh, Norman Mailer and Plimpton and everybody else is coming to our country to produce some amazing American sports writing about this. And comparatively, while it's still one of the most famous fights of all time, there just isn't the same amount of culture written about Manila the next year, even though the circumstances of the fight itself and the conditions in which they fought are just as extraordinary as the previous year. They might not have had the deluge of rain, but they've got a 50 degrees Celsius heat to contend with inside, where there's no space to even sit down on the gangways inside in the arena in which they fight. So I think all of that stuff is a little less well told. Well told, but a little less well told. Yeah, well, according to Fraser's side. So that's the plan between 8 and 9 tonight, 50 years ago, tomorrow, 1st of October 1975, the third final and possibly greatest of the three fights between Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. Our number, as I say, is 0879 180 180 if you want to send us a WhatsApp. Cameron Hill, where are you starting?
Well, Champions League, and we'll give you the team news in just a few minutes' time. But Chelsea boss Enzo Maresca says it'll be a privilege to come up against the club's former manager Jose Mourinho tonight. The Portuguese coach taking his new side Benfica to Stamford Bridge this evening as they clash in the second of their league phase games in this year's Champions League. Mourinho returns to the club he guided to 3 Premier Leagues, an FA Cup and 3 EFL Cup across 2 stints in charge, and despite having a wide range of teams on his coaching CV, he says Chelsea will always hold a special place in his career.
Of course, I will always be a Blue. I'm part of their history and they are part of my history. I helped them to become a bigger Chelsea and they helped me to become a bigger Jose. When I say I'm not a Blue, I hope everybody understands it, that I'm speaking about the job that I have to do. But in relation to these pictures, there are not many clubs that do this. Because in many clubs, it looks like there is a fear of what happened in the past, and there is a continuous transformation of pictures. Sometimes it looks like they want to delete people that made history in the clubs. I think this show that Chelsea is really a big club, because big clubs are also about principles.
You were commenting on the wholesome moments that Jose Mourinho has been engaging in since he's come back to London.
Yeah, Mick alerted me to his meeting with what's the incredibly Irish sounding name that we're going to appropriate his...
Teresa Connolly, I believe, is her name.
Connolly, yeah.
I don't know what her role is at the club. You can see a picture of it there if you're watching along. It was a lovely moment. It was like, and from what I've heard, is she's someone that's worked at the club for an awful long time. Like, people go, wow, God, I was there in the 90s and she was there, you know. So Jose obviously had 2 stints at Chelsea, pretty long time overall to be at the club. So it's not massively surprising that he would see a long-time staff member and have some affection, but I do think it is in Jose that, like, you won't hear people at football clubs, like real staff of football clubs, talk badly about him. It does just seem to be part of his character. Maybe it's part of the charm and the character that he has built. But it is also something that, regardless of the motives behind it, it's real for them.
There's a deep part of my cynicism that my reaction to seeing that earlier on was like, that's why he's not the manager he once was. That he's mellowed in his old age, and he's got too soft Jose to be a top class football manager. So I probably just need to kind of sort that element of my personality out really before anything else. I was going to say, you're the problem here. Yeah. Where do you want to go next, Cameron?
Well, Liverpool are in Turkey to take on Galatasaray while Tottenham play Bodo Glimt. The big team news from Liverpool's perspective tonight is that Mohamed Salah and Alexander Isak have both been named on the bench for that game in Istanbul.
Just sorry to interrupt, but Dermot Keenan in our YouTube channels is obviously watching on us on one screen and watching Prime on the other screen, because he's just been watching Arne Slot's pre-match interview. Says Slot just said in Prime that Szoboszlai is going to play at right back and Frimpong at right wing. So let's see if that actually turns out to be true. It's an interesting one, because it seems to be part of their defence that seems to be letting them down at the moment in terms of their full-backs. Salah on the bench paves the way for an opening at right wing, so we'll see if this is something they actually go forward with after tonight.
Yeah, 5 changes in fact for that Liverpool team tonight. Florian Wirtz, Cody Gakpo, Hugo Ekitike all making the starting 11 actually, so it's Ekitike who's in that trio. There's also recalls for Frimpong and Curtis Jones tonight. On the Chelsea front, they've made 5 changes with Alejandro Garnacho and Facundo Buonanotte starting in attack, while there are 5 changes for Spurs tonight in that game in Norway. Kevin Danso, Brennan Johnson, Pedro Porro, Wilson Odobert and Pape Sarr all coming in.
Fraser versus Ali was probably the greatest rivalry in boxing, nearly as good as Rocky and Creed, says one texter. You can get us on 53106 as well.
Atletico Madrid manager Diego Simeone has been given a 1-match touchline ban after clashing with Liverpool supporters in their match at Anfield earlier this month. He's been punished for, quote, unsporting behaviour due to his reaction after Virgil van Dijk's late winner. Liverpool have been fined just under £3,500 due to supporters throwing objects during that match.
We are watching Real Madrid just go 3-0 up against Kairat Almaty, so they've put a stop to their little mini crisis that seemed to develop over the course of the weekend, and it's 1-1 as well at the moment between Atalanta and Club Brugge in the other early game in the Champions League.
Matters closer to home then. Shamrock Rovers boss Stephen Bradley welcomed Johnny Sexton to training today as the sides prepare for their Conference League opener on Thursday. So the Hoops travel by plane to the Czech capital tomorrow, with Sparta Prague first up in their league phase campaign. Bradley said they're delighted to have Sexton in with the squad as he samples a range of other sports on the outset of his journey into rugby coaching. Shelbourne also make their Champions League bow on Thursday. They welcome Swedish side Häcken to Tala Stadium, their designated home venue for these league phase games. And Bradley believes their exploits in Europe could inject much needed positivity into Irish football.
Yeah, I think we've been doing that for a long time, to be honest. And it's great that we have Shelbourne with us this year to go and lead the charge again. And we've seen the impact that playing right up until the 18th of December, we've seen the impact that has on the public in general. And you get fans that you wouldn't normally get in. And having Shelbourne will only help that cause and help grow the league in a positive light. And our job right now is to affect things on the pitch. And we're doing that. Both clubs are doing that. So hopefully come the 18th of December, we're both in a really good position in the league, and we're in with a chance to go and be in the knockout phase, because that has to be the aim for us.
Shelbourne versus Häcken is a game you'll be able to hear live on Off the Ball on Thursday night as well, by the way. Just back on Rovers, interesting to see Johnny Sexton show up. I know obviously there's the Kieran Medler connection there to Shamrock Rovers and between Johnny Sexton as well, but I definitely get the sense there's this genuine curiosity about everything. And is it one of these situations where at the very start of your coaching career you can have a greater impact on yourself by taking in all these different experiences, as opposed to later in your career you're a bit more of a sponge?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I get the impression that at the moment what I'm seeing it as what Shamrock Rovers are getting out of it. You know what I mean? Is that they're getting, like a big motivational speech from a legend ahead of their massive game. But maybe it is that. Maybe I've read that wrong, and maybe it's Johnny going to kind of see how the people do it in different sports and different clubs and stuff like that. And yeah, maybe he's getting a lot out of it. Like, from what we hear is, you know, he has taken to coaching in a way that he wasn't expecting. You know, he did a bit of it. He had his career, and then it was just like, hold on a minute, this is for me, I think, and go all in. So that would suggest that he is sort of thinking outside the box and trying to get as much as he can under his belt.
Probably puts to bed a lot of the stuff around the Lions when he was going on that ticket, and people say, well, how have you earned that? You know, it felt like, I remember someone saying it's like he's on TY work experience out with the Lions for the summer, whereas this shows an obvious intent to actually go and absorb, as you say, be a sponge at the outset of your career. It's much more encouraging than maybe what the summer might have portrayed for certain people.
Yeah, the Newsround is with UPMC Sports Surgery Clinic. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action. Where are we heading next, Cameron?
Well, Cork City fans are understood to be planning a protest at Friday's FAI Cup semi-final at home to St. Pat's. Demonstrations by supporters groups are actively being planned at Turner's Cross, aimed at the club's ownership over a possible third relegation in 6 seasons from the men's Premier Division. Striker Shawnee Maguire was out before media today, and he's hopeful fans will still support the team in their huge club cup clash.
Like, I think every fan and any person that supports a football club, I think they're entitled to their own opinion, and if they're going to start a protest, I can't stand here and tell you that they can't do it and they shouldn't do it. But they probably have to think about, is that going to help us players going into a really, really big game? I don't know. I know that myself and the boys in there are going to still prepare and do everything right for a huge game on Friday, because we're coming up to against a good team, a massive opportunity, and we just have to park those sort of things to the side, because every fan's entitled to their own opinion. You know, like, it's been difficult for us, it's been really difficult for them as well, because that's our club. They've travelled in their numbers everywhere in the country, and we haven't been good enough. They've every right to be disappointed in us, because if I was a fan standing, I'd be disappointed in us as well. But they probably just have to think of it as a thing, is it going to help us players going into the game Friday night? They'll probably have to answer that for them.
Interesting, yeah. Moving on to other stories from today in athletics. Big day for Orla Comerford. She's celebrating a second gold medal in 3 days at the World Para Athletics Championships in New Delhi. The Dublin sprinter won the T13 200 metres final in a time of 24.71 seconds. It comes 2 days after she also claimed gold in the 100 metres event. Team Ireland now have 3 medals, with Greta Strimakaita also winning gold in the 1500 metres T13 final. Moving on to rugby then, Munster have offered an injury update ahead of their URC clash with Cardiff at Thomond Park on Saturday evening. The province have revealed that starting out half JJ Hanrahan failed an HIA in their win over the Scarlets at the weekend, so he'll be unavailable for this weekend as he follows return to play protocols that could pave the way for Jack Crowley to take the 10 jersey for that round 2 clash. Niall Scannell also underwent a HIA, but he passed that, so he's been cleared to train this week.
I should say the 3 goals from Real Madrid tonight have all come from Kylian Mbappe, penalty and 2 goals from open play. So he's obviously taken the idea that Real Madrid can't win the Ballon d'Or personally, and he's going to set out to win it this year.
After the second goal, the TNT commentator said, you have to feel that wraps up the win for Real Madrid. And you're going to look, I don't know, is that doing down Kairat?
It's, I mean, it looks like a fairly amazing atmosphere, to be fair to Kairat, and a very famously long journey, which I suspect we'll be mentioning about every single Kairat Almaty game as it distance. Probably a good time for Real Madrid to get out of the city, get out of Spain this week, and Mbappe certainly has done his bit to try and get them back into form after getting smashed by Atletico Madrid over the course of the weekend.
5-2 is a very Madrid derby scoreline. Like, I mean, I stand to be, I'm sure I could look through everyone, there might never have been one, but it does feel like the kind of thing that happens in a Madrid derby. Does that make sense? It just feels about right. Like, yeah, it's a bit chaotic, it's a bit mad. There's a surprise hammering, and but there's goals on both sides.
Yeah, well, I think Diego Simeone's emotion would suggest that it is not a fairly common occurrence what happened at the weekend. I should say Camavinga has just put Real Madrid 4-0 up, didn't even celebrate, just to rub salt in the wounds of the
played for Kairat before, is that
exactly, he doesn't want to celebrate against his former club. So that certainly wraps up that 3 points for them. As I say, we're going to have Eoin Doyle with us for the evening a little later on to keep us up to speed and everything that happens in the 8 o'clock kickoffs. It's still 1-1 between Atalanta and Club Brugge in the other early game. We have time for one more story, Cameron.
Well, Carlos Alcaraz has won another tennis title, this time at the Japan Open, after a comfortable victory over the US's Taylor Fritz in the final in the early hours of this morning. The world number one got past the American second seed in straight sets in Tokyo, but he lashed out at Irish umpire Fergus Murphy during the final, criticising the use of the shot clock between points. So Murphy had issued Alcaraz with a code violation for running over his allotted time as he failed to get back in time for a point after an incredibly long rally. Alcaraz says he should have been given more time to start the next point, but when Murphy didn't budge, he replied, "You haven't played tennis in your life. Come on, you've never played tennis in your life. You never played tennis because you said this is normal." He's not the first person to have gotten on the wrong side of Fergus Murphy, or not the first player who's hit out at him, but the latest in a long series of tennis players maybe losing their cool against Fergus Murphy.
Yeah, who had a go at Fergus Murphy before?
Nick Kyrgios really didn't like him. Really didn't like him. Always used to get into scraps with Fergus Murphy, who, in fairness, never seems to budge or relent. But Alcaraz also then pulled out for the next couple of weeks with an injury as he waits towards the end of the season. So maybe that was playing on his mind, and the frustration of that got to him too. We'll have to wait and see.
Cameron Hill?
Naturally, I can't find the 5-2 between Atletico and Real Madrid. And the last time any team scored 5 goals was when Real Madrid beat them 5-0 in 1984.
Okay, but it still holds true. It still feels like you had the nub of a point there. Just
they beat them
none of the data
4-0 a few years ago, Atletico.
Okay, close enough. Close enough. Cameron, thank you for tonight's news round. We'll take a quick break. We're going to be talking Gaelic Games and the special congress that's coming up at the weekend, where we expect the vast majority of the rules enhancements to be waved through, no problem. But we're going to drill down into a bit of the data and what signposts the FRC have left behind as they wash their hands at the end of the beginning of this process of revamping Gaelic football. Before that, it's time for the Cash Machine.
News Talk's Cash Machine.
Now, another week, another huge amount to be won on the Cash Machine, and this Friday the number you need to know is €259,000. There are 2 ways you can enter. You can visit newstalk.com/cash machine, where you can enter online, or you can text PLAY to 57557. That's 57557. You have to get your entry in by 3 p.m. on Friday, and then across the Go Loud network of stations, someone is going to get that call. If your phone rings, you have to answer it within 5 rings. Give us the exact amount in euro and cent, and you'll win the cash. So remember that amount one more time, €259,000. Over 18s only. Text costs €2.50 plus your standard message rate to play. You're playing across the Go Loud network of stations, and terms and conditions are on newstalk.com.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With UPMC Sports Surgery Clinic. When things don't move, rotate or bend like they used to, choose us to help you get back in action.
This is News Talk.